So Congressman Justin Amash, who is he and why is he here? So in a room like this, we know the basics, right? So Michigan State House, endorsed by Ron Paul and Freedom Works, successful stint in the U.S. House of Representatives as a liberty-loving Republican, embracing the Liberty Caucus and founding the House Freedom Caucus. I debated last night, I was kind of typing up some notes, and I said, was it a short stint or a long stint in Congress? And it depends on who you ask. I mean, it's a short stint compared to Nancy Pelosi, for sure, but certainly a decent amount of time to affect change and to show his values as a liberty-loving congressman. He broke ranks and became a liberty-loving independent, and finally found his new home as a liberty-loving libertarian. Welcome. As you guys know, he is the first and only Libertarian Party congressman to date, and hopefully the first of many. Thank you. So that, my friends, that's a long journey home for him, right? He has also famously or infamously, again, depending on who you ask, he was the first Republican to call for the impeachment of President Donald Trump. The rest of the basics of his politics and his positions you can pick up on Google or Wikipedia, right? And his personal and family life are none of my business, and I have no intention of speaking to them. But if he's anything like me, his passion for making the world a better place is informed by personal experience and driven by a sense of duty to his family and to his community. So why is he here? Or rather, why are we having him here? Why are we listening to him? Why do we choose to listen to him and engage with him? So I'll start with this. When you boil it down, I believe there are two reasons why our party exists. First, to effectively spread the message of liberty, with effective being defined as growing our membership. And second, to effectively run libertarian candidates at all levels of government, with effective being defined as winning elections. Well, Justin has done both. He has valuable knowledge and experience from his runs for elected positions and his time in office, and I believe his messaging for liberty is both on point and effective. Congressman Amash balances his unapologetic positions with his natural humility and kindness, not so much like Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen. So he's got something to say, and he knows how to say it. But there's an elephant in the room, and maybe not in this room, but maybe in parts of our party, and that is, all those years as a Republican, is he that libertarian? Maybe you're pro-choice and you don't like his pro-life stance. Maybe you don't like his previous change in stance on gay marriage, albeit in the right direction. Maybe you don't like his vote for this or for that, and that's all fine. It is. No matter your application of libertarian philosophy, no matter your end goal, whether it be anarchy, minarchy, or simply a generally smaller and more manageable government, we are all walking in the same direction. When my non-libertarian friends ask me what differentiates the Libertarian Party from the Republican and Democratic parties, I like to use this analogy. The Libertarian Party has a true north, and every libertarian is focused on that true north. That we oppose the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals. That true north, it guides every position, every decision, every solution to every problem, and every piece of the puzzle fits together politically and philosophically when you have that true north to depend on. The Republican and Democratic parties simply do not have that. We know this. And without a guiding principle, an absolute, a true north, their parties are prone to haphazard populism, to knee-jerk reactions, and to self-serving power grabs. When Congressman Amash was serving in Congress, he experienced that firsthand. And we've heard him speak, and he describes the federal government as an oligarchy, right? It is an oligarchy. It's parading as a constitutional republic. So his formal credentials, his street cred, and his willingness to buck the system tell me that he is that libertarian. And we are fortunate to have him officially join the ranks of capital L libertarians who are walking in the same direction toward a society set free. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Justin Amash.
Well, I want to say thank you, Brian. Thank you to Stephen, to Mark, to the entire Libertarian Party. First of all, you don't know how happy I am to be here. I served as a Republican for a while, and you guys talk about your infighting. You guys don't even know infighting. I mean, this is this is like a very peaceful, happy family compared to what I've been through. So I think that tends to get exaggerated in the Libertarian Party, how much fighting there is. Actually, I think we have a lot of community here, a lot of friendship, a lot of family, and when you're a small group like we are, and a growing group, but a small group still, it's easy to get things blown out of proportion, and to to take things personally. And part of it is because you end up knowing so many people personally. When you're in the Republican Party, it's big enough where someone says something bad about you and you don't run into them ever. Here you're going to run into them, whether it's on social media or at an event. So I think we need to be appreciative and thankful for what we have as a Libertarian Party. So I got to say, it was, it's great to be here. It was cool at times to be in Congress. There's no doubt about that. I got to lay the marker for what a libertarian member of Congress looks like. And there was a lot of pressure on me, not just as a Libertarian Party member when I came over to the Libertarian Party, but before as a Libertarian. I entered politics thinking I would operate as a very Libertarian member and I would be setting an example for other people. So it was something special and something that I took very seriously. And I ran for office in the first place because I wanted to show people that a person could operate independently and also be successful. And I was successful. I was the lone no vote more than 50 times as a member of Congress. And to give you a sense of how many times that is, it's more than 40% of all of the lone no votes in Congress during that period of time. So all of the other members combined were the other 60% or so, or less than 60% of the lone no votes. This is where the vote is something like 400 something to 1. The first year I served in Congress, I served there with Ron Paul, and even in that year, I was the lone no vote 8 times, and the rest of Congress was 5 times. So I think that gives you a little bit of a sense of how I entered Congress, the kind of mentality I entered with. I voted for the least amount of spending over a 10-year period that I was there. So, there's always going to be some spending you vote for. There are some functions that we think the federal government should do, and there will be some spending we vote for. But I voted for the least amount of spending of anyone. And I still often think about that NSA amendment when we tried to stop the unconstitutional NSA surveillance after Edward Snowden's revelations, which, by the way, was 8 years ago yesterday. And I think he does deserve a pardon for what he did, because I think he, as I said once, he told us what we need to know. And to show you how much I frustrated the establishment of both parties, every time I would fight on privacy or on surveillance, you'd get the leadership in both parties working against me. They'd come to the House floor. We think the parties in D.C., they're always fighting each other. But actually, any time that someone is fighting for you, they will fight against that person together. So you'll have John Boehner go to the House floor with Nancy Pelosi, or Paul Ryan go to the House floor with Nancy Pelosi, and they'll both attack me. I'm pretty sure I am the only member of Congress who's ever had a veto threat by a Democratic president and a Republican president. So related to surveillance amendments. So, and first of all, presidents don't issue veto threats on amendments very often, so that's unusual on its own. But it also shows you the fear that these parties had of what I was doing. You don't issue a veto threat unless you think the thing is going to pass. So I was scaring them. The timing is coincidental, but a lot of the bills I'm proudest of were actually after I switched to the Libertarian Party. You know, I had a whole bunch of bills in the hopper that I'd been working on for years, and I wanted to make sure I got them out the door before I left Congress. And some of them were, for example, ending qualified immunity and getting rid of civil asset forfeiture. For all the Democrats who talk about, you know, protecting people's rights and you know, reforming our justice system, they can't do those two simple things. They can't end qualified immunity or end civil asset forfeiture, and yet those are two things that would make a huge difference in our justice system. I also introduced legislation to stop foreign arms sales, to get out of Yemen, to rein in FISA, to repeal the Jones Act, to end the unconstitutional no-fly list, to protect whistleblowers, to balance the budget, to limit the president's emergency powers. I mean, that's a major abuse, the idea that presidents go out there and when Congress doesn't agree with them, they say, well, we're just going to call it an emergency and do what we like. And we saw governors do that during COVID. To decriminalize marijuana was another thing I worked on at the federal level. And the point is this: through all that, my constituents very much supported me. They very much supported what I was doing. And they knew I was a libertarian. You know, even when I was a Republican, I wasn't trying to pretend I was some kind of conservative. They knew I was calling myself a libertarian Republican throughout my time in Congress. So they knew who I was, and they supported me. What I was doing was appealing to Republicans and Democrats and independents, and of course, libertarians. And I consistently outperformed the other people in the district. I would consistently get the highest vote total in the district of all the candidates in all the races. So it was working. And that's what I think I can bring to this. I can show what it's like to be successful as a libertarian. And hopefully we can, working together, have other libertarian candidates who will be successful, who will make a difference. I've hosted countless town halls, spent a lot of time with constituents, so I bring that experience to the table. And I think there are millions of libertarians out there. They're soft libertarians in the sense that they don't know they're libertarians, but they are out there. It doesn't mean they want to end the Fed. They don't even know what the Fed is, okay? We should be honest about that. But they really believe in what we believe. They just haven't spent the time researching it, thinking through all of the nuance. They have libertarian instincts because this is a very libertarian country. And these are the people we need to bring into the Libertarian Party. They're out there. They're available. And we can make a difference. We can bring them in. So we have to recognize what role the Libertarian Party plays. The Libertarian Party is a political party. Its purpose is to organize as many people as it can to win elections. The purpose is not to convert people. I know that's hard for people to accept, and I fall into this trap too at times of thinking like, my job is always to try to convert people. But the Libertarian Party is a political party, and its purpose is to organize people. Converting people isn't the province of the party. It's the province of the broader libertarian movement. So we want to look to individuals, candidates, outside groups, podcasters, entertainers, all of those people to make the philosophical and moral arguments for libertarianism. But if the party is focused on convincing someone of everything in the platform before you let that person in the door, you'll never grow the party enough to be a force. We're going to have to think big. We're talking about bringing in millions of people, not thousands of people. And there are already enough of those soft libertarians out there to make us competitive. As I said, they're libertarians, but they don't know it yet. So we bring them in with broad concepts and ideas they can get behind, as well as issues that are highly relevant to them. One of the biggest hooks we have as a party is that we are the party of practicality. Republicans, Democrats are the parties of impulse and irrationality. Libertarianism is a practical philosophy because to be principled is to be practical. When you think about it, the point of principles is to help you make practical decisions when convenience compels you to make impractical ones. That's the point of principles. Being principled is being practical. So as we grow and succeed, these new libertarians that we bring in, they're going to want to learn more about libertarianism. So bring in these libertarians who are out there. They don't know they're one of us yet. We bring them into the party because they agree with us, and they will learn more about libertarianism. They'll be influenced by their new friends in the party. It works like any other social group, right? You bring the people in, they start to learn more about it, they start to understand some of the concepts that they didn't understand at first, that tie into things they already know. We're not going to grow the party substantially by focusing messaging on people who already strongly identify as libertarian. We can grow it that way, but not substantially. If you focus all of your messaging on people who are strongly libertarian, you'll probably get a higher floor, right? You'll move up, maybe, if we're pulling 1, 2, 3% elections, maybe by focusing on just strong libertarians, maybe we can get up to 5%. But it also creates a ceiling. It creates a ceiling that you can't get past. And so you won't be able to grow the party in a substantial way if that's what your messaging is exclusively focused on. So we need to aim for 1/3 of the country. We need to bring in 1/3 of the country. And millions of voters will join us if we don't scare them off before they've had the chance to grow into strong libertarians. So effective messaging will be both a radical departure from the status quo and also incredibly appealing in its practicality. It's our job to tie our principles to practical beliefs that millions of Americans already hold, to convince them the Libertarian Party has much more in common with them than they thought. While our messaging should rile people up about particular issues like war and police reform, it also needs to emphasize positive ideas, empowering people, protecting rights, equality before the law, community and localism, humility and respect. And we already have great examples of this type of positive messaging. And I will cite Vermin Supreme, believe it or not, Vermin Supreme and Spike Cohen, who had the messaging related to the power. They had those ads on the power. And I thought that was confident, empowering. It made people feel like they were part of something bigger. And I think we do need messaging like that. That's what we need to focus on as a party. And I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. I want to leave time for questions. So I'm going to open it up for questions. And I just want to say again, thank you to everyone for being here and for being a part of this. So we got about 10 minutes or so for questions, so hopefully someone has questions.
Thank you. Hi, Justin. My name is Phil. I'm originally from Ohio, very cold.
Go
Michigan, yeah, Michigan a lot colder. Have you ever thought of moving to a warmer climate, possibly Florida, and maybe running for Congress again in a state that has better, ballot access laws?
Well, I'll tell you, I love living where I live. I love Grand Rapids, Michigan. But I have always said that the Orlando area would make a great second place to live if I had another choice. So.
Yes, I just want to ask, what are your next plans for an office? With Whitmer there in Michigan, we'd really like to see you run for governor because Whitmer is a disaster, and you would be the opposite of that.
Thanks. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Look, she has been a disaster in so many ways. The Republicans aren't fielding great candidates at this point, so I don't know what's going to happen in that race. But honestly, I am interested in spending some time with my family over the next couple years, 2, 3, 4 years. I just want to spend time with them. My kids are at that age where they're getting into high school age, and I want to be able to make sure I'm there for them. So I'm happy doing that. Maybe someday again I'll think about being a candidate for office, but right now I want to use my experience, my skills, to the extent I have skills, to help other candidates, to help the party grow. I think that's really important, that this party can grow. I don't want to. My dream as a member of Congress was always to get to the point where I wasn't necessary. A lot of times I felt like I was necessary. Like for the 10 years I was there, if I wasn't the one fighting the fight, nobody was. And that's a really, frightening place to be in, where there was issue after issue where I felt like if I wasn't there, everyone was screwed because nobody was going to fight on that issue. Surveillance issues were a good example where if I didn't take the lead, I'm not sure anyone else in Congress would have taken the lead in the same way, not to build coalitions like I tried to build. So I think that shows why maybe I should have stayed in Congress. I'm just a human being like anyone else. I want to spend time with my family just like you might want to spend time with your family. And we need to get to the place where it's not necessary for one person to be there fighting. We want to have a whole team of libertarians in there fighting the good fight and doing the right thing.
Morning, Justin. Lauren with People for Liberty. You mentioned growing the movement, so I have a two-part question. What are some action items that you see for everyday people in growing the movement and where you hope to help grow? And then tell us about the college course you're teaching on libertarianism.
Yeah, so thank you. So look, every person has a different role. I think the National Party has the job of organizing, making sure that we are consistently applying a message that will reach lots of people, and not trying to nitpick and get into the minutia. I think that's important for people at the national level. For people like me and others who have a voice to get on national television or radio or to do podcasting, I think that's really important. Get out there and do that. But people on the ground also can make a difference. People in their communities. I often say you can make a big impact just by being a good example for other people. If people in your community know that you are a libertarian person and you are also someone that is respected by your friends and neighbors and families and coworkers, that will make a difference. If you go to work with someone who's a libertarian and you spend a lot of time talking with them and that person seems like a good person, you might be inclined to think about libertarianism. So you can do that every day. And then I also think there's a role for outside groups. I don't think, and this is part of what you and Joe and others are doing, we need those outside groups that are going to advocate for libertarianism. Like I said, the party's job is to organize, but these outside groups can go in there and really advocate and educate people about libertarianism. And right now, we don't have enough of those. We actually used to have more, but since the Trump movement came along in the Republican Party, a lot of the more libertarian leaning or libertarian thinking groups sort of switched their messaging. They moved away from libertarianism and more toward a sort of Trumpism. And so we do need to rebuild a lot of that infrastructure, and that's where I think you can come in. And as for teaching about libertarianism, I had the fortune, I feel very blessed to have been invited to teach at the University of Chicago. And they told me, now I just completed it, I'm done for the semester, and hopefully they'll bring me back in the future because I really did enjoy it. But they invited me to come in and they said, hey, we'd like you to come in and we want to have diversity in terms of how we're teaching. And so come in and suggest a topic, and the topic I suggested was libertarianism. So I had the great fortune of teaching libertarianism for 2 months at the University of Chicago. And let me tell you what it showed me. First of all, these students were not all indoctrinated, like, you know, people like to say students are indoctrinated. I know that there are big problems with the educational system, but, and we as libertarians want to privatize as much of that system as we can and return power to parents and communities, and especially get the federal government out of there. But I felt like these students really got it. In this class, I had lots of progressive students, I had some conservatives and some libertarians. But I would say that the majority of the class, maybe 2/3, were toward the progressive side, you know, Democrats, left of center to progressive. And what really inspired me was, as I would hold office hours, these students would come in to my office hours, and they'd tell me how much they were rethinking a lot of this, and how they were finding libertarianism a lot more appealing than they thought. The whole point of the class, and I stated this from the beginning of the course, was I want you to recognize that you're more libertarian than you think you are. And so we even finished up the semester. I brought in Nick Gillespie as a guest speaker on the last day, and we had a very diverse class. We had Michael Malice there. We had AOC there. So I brought in a lot of interesting guests. But I brought in Nick Gillespie, and we tied it up, and the theme of that class was "We are all libertarians now." And I can tell you, a lot of those students, they came up to me afterwards and they said, I was a Democrat, I think I'm a libertarian now, or you've really changed my mind about things. And a lot of them were saying things like, how can I help? I had students who said, I live in this place, how can I connect with the Libertarian Party? And so I'd say, here's how you can connect. Or people who want to run for office in the future. So we can make an impact just through these kinds of conversations. But again, I think it's by showing people that they already are libertarian. It's not about converting them to libertarianism. You don't have to have some huge conversion like we've got some kind of secret knowledge and we're going to go share it with them. No, they already know what we know, but they just haven't put it all together the same way. And I get this on, sorry to extend this answer, but on Twitter all the time, I talk about decentralization a lot. And you wouldn't believe how many people on Twitter reply with silly replies like, you know, when does decentralization work? Or you know, that relies on people to do the right thing. Yeah. As though like centralization doesn't, you know, like centralization is like, we're just going to elect the best people and we'll put 5 of them somewhere and they'll decide everything. That's a foolproof way to protect our rights, right? They'll definitely do the right thing. So, you know, like, but when you talk to people about things like decentralization, they might say, like, what is decentralization? How does that doesn't work. But then when you talk about their own life, so much of it is decentralized. So much of it is, you know, they're deciding things for their family or they're working with others cooperatively in a community. It's not centrally planned. So it's just a matter of getting them to acknowledge what already exists in their own life. And when you get them to see that, it can make a big difference. So that's my answer to that question.
I'm Dan Cardwell. Thank you so much. You know, the message you're talking about that I completely agree with is that there are more of us out there. There are a lot more of us out there that even know it. And one of the things I was thinking about while you were talking, and really over the last couple of years, who is there now? Like, are there people in the U.S. House right now who don't know they're libertarians yet, but you've had common ground with, you've worked with, you've discussed issues with that they agree with you on?
Yeah, well, to start, Thomas Massey doesn't know he should be a Libertarian Party member yet. So that's one person. That's one person, and you know, he's my friend, and so it's not like we haven't talked about this kind of stuff. But there are members there, but they want to see a party that is strong and effective. Like I mean, there is like a catch-22 or a chicken and egg sort of situation, more correctly. Like which comes first? Like you have to have a strong party to draw people in, but if you draw enough people in, you'll have a strong party. So it's like it's a difficult prospect in that sense. But we have to work at it. We're going to have to build up a party that they want to be a part of. And as I said before, because I sometimes see Libertarian Party members and they'll criticize sometimes very fiercely, like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or others. And look, there are reasons to criticize them, just like there might be reasons to criticize me. There's always reasons to criticize members of Congress. Okay? But if we want to be a major party, if we want to compete with them, we're going to have to think about ourselves as a party that has people like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or Tulsi Gabbard, people who we don't necessarily align with 100%, thinking about them being in our camp. Because, as I said, if you want to be a major party, you're talking about reaching out to a third of the country. And if those people aren't in our third, we've got problems, right? So those people are going to be in our third. So, so we're going to need to work on that. And there are members of Congress who I think would be open to joining the Libertarian Party, but they need to feel like we are making the effort to reach out to them, that we are building up our party and we're making it as strong a party as possible. So I think we're out of time for questions. I want to make sure we have time to move to the next thing. But I just want to say again, thank you to everyone for being a part of this. You are making a difference, and we're going to work on this together. Thanks.